I want to support them in every possible way, not through handouts and instructions or diktats, but by getting out of council's way, letting them make their own decisions, by making localism a reality. It's fairer, it's more efficient, and it's more democratic. As the Prime Minister said, we feel the importance of this in our heads as well as our hearts. It's not my job to sit behind a desk like some sort of puppet master, pulling all the strings and taking all the decisions. Instead of seeing how tightly I can pull those strings, I spent the past few months simply cutting them away. I've put an end to regional bureaucracy, interference from government offices, endless inspections, and I've started a bonfire of the inanities. When stacked up together, they aren't just minor irritants, they're major barriers. Hammersmith and Fulham alone came up with more than 100 bureaucratic burdens, taking up their time and their energy. And I can promise you this, Stephen, I'm working on it. We're all going to sort out several of them, and it's my intention to remove as many of those burdens as we possibly can. And I don't intend to stop there. Time and time again, I hear complaints from councils about how much of a burden the national indicator set is. Not because measurements and targets are always a bad thing, don't get me wrong there. If councils working with residents want to set themselves goals to aim for, that's up to them. It could actually help in making them more accountable, more clearer, more transparent. But national targets tend to mean that councils are constantly working on things which matter to Whitehall, regardless of what local residents think. I'd rather councils were tackling local issues and telling me how they're dealing with those. There are 66 pages of guidance telling councils how to report on national indicators of 179. Ironically, it's supposed to measure how efficient councils are. Kent reckons it costs them £1 million a year to deal with inspections and regulation. Add in what the local police force, health service, district council are expected to do, and a reasonable estimate, a conservative estimate of the total, makes it more than £7 million. They think that they are being constantly measured, have their performance against no fewer than 1,500 different indicators. 1,500 different indicators. It frankly beggars belief. The money being spent on form filling, bean counting, will be far better being spent on helping the elderly stay in their homes, or frankly, almost anything else. So today, I can announce that I am scrapping the existing local area agreements. I'm handing over control to more than 4,700 targets to council and their voters, to keep them or to dump them as they see fit. Instead of the national indicator set, and instead of every single department endlessly demanding what you measure this, I'm promising today that we will just going to have one list of every bit of data that the government needs from you, which I will be your guardian and in charge of. So let's make it possible to sort this out. Let's sort it out together and ensure that the minimum the government actually needs to know. So instead of red tape and regulation, instead of instructions and inspections, we're going to give councils what they've wanted to do for decades: freedom, power, and responsibility. To be able to take your own decisions on housing, a stronger say in planning, a central role in the National Health Service, and in the driving seats on the local economy, thanks to local enterprise partnership. And that's just really the foundation, because the localism bill, which will be unveiled in just a few weeks, will go even further. Councils will be able to organise themselves and do whatever they want. Through a general power of competence, they will be able to do whatever they want to do. It will be up to councils and your voters, not up to me. And perhaps more importantly of all, I want to make sure councils are in charge of their own money. We've said that they can borrow against future business rates in order to invest. They can keep money from rents, and they'll be able to agree local pooling of their budgets across the public sector to tackle social problems. We've already freed up more than £1 billion worth of ring fencing, and we can do a lot more. The last government was addicted to telling councils not just what to do, but how to do it, and how much it would cost, right down to the last pound. Often ministers had vanity projects. Durham has counted 58 different funding streams for housing and regeneration. Dorset, Poole and Birmingham have counted 80 agencies invested in the local economic growth in their area, many of them spending less than £50,000. Councils aren't being allowed to do things their way. They can't spend it on anything else, and they have to spend it all in order to get more money next time. Whatever money is coming, by the time the rules have been followed, the forms have been filled in, the conditions have been satisfied, it's always going to be less money. It's a recipe for financial madness. Where's the reason to be efficient? Where's the incentive to be imaginative? What point is there in listening to local voters instead of central government? Well, I don't want to be an overbearing parent handing out pocket money and telling you exactly how it should be spent. I have far too much respect for local government. My roots are deep within local government. And that's why, as part of the spending review, we're working on those artificial barriers coming down, putting an end to vanity funding pots, putting as much money as possible into just one cheque from councils, for councils and residents to work out for themselves how they want to spend it. But with power and freedom and money comes responsibility to act on that power. So everything possible to protect frontline services, to protect and target spending on the most vulnerable, to commissioning really effective and productive services, not just the same old, and just forget about the public sector. This has got to be a proactive process. I don't want councils turning to me on every little issue. Paralysis in case they do the wrong thing. The past decade has stifled councils, created a culture of dependency. Some councils feel like they can't do anything without my permission. It's hardly surprising when councils have been tied to the apron string for so long. We need to replace a culture of fear and paralysis to a new culture of action and decisiveness. That culture is very evident right here in this very chamber that I attended so many years ago to see the first of your fantastic cuts in the council tax, and to watch the Labour Party sat over here, unable to decide whether to vote for it, vote against it, or abstain. In the end, they seem to do all three. I don't want to be in the blame game, but what will make sure that their council, as well as government, is doing everything possible to protect frontline services that the public can rely on. I mean, I've done my part in the spending review to ensure that local government gets lots of freedoms, but there is going to be a lot less money. We need to cut out every penny of waste, become creative and imaginative, face up to the challenge not ducking them. It's a long time since I led a council, but I have sat in the chair, I have dealt with the budget, and I have the deepest respect for those who, like you, Stephen, and Colin, and the rest in the room, who have to approach these difficult times with a great deal of imagination and thoughtfulness. But I can promise you to be an enthusiastic champion, an enthusiastic cheerleader of what you're doing. I will make sure that, that you have what it needs to, I think, tackle these problems with the new powers. See, we can't. The real thing I always like about local government, the reason why I think in difficult times it's held the fabric of society together, is that local government's natural instinct is to use innovation, to adapt very quickly. Even in the most stifling of times, most of the clever ideas, most of the really smart ways of dealing with deprivation, dealing with poverty, dealing with the housing crisis, has generally come through a local government setting. So really, the next few years, while it might be about a lot less money, will be about a lot more power and ability to shape services for the needs of your local community, not for the needs of vanity programs for ministers like myself. Thank you very much indeed.